Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. I hope you're enjoying this series on how to lead from anywhere. If you watched episode one, we gave you some basic thoughts on how to approach this overall, and now we're going into details of what every leader should do to ensure the people that they have working for them are not only deeply engaged, but highly productive. So this week, we're going over strategy planning and organization, and we're going to cover your guideposts on the road to success. So we'll go over the things you really should do or consider doing. Consider this an education. You should do this whether your people are remote or working in office. But when they're remote and you're remote to them, this is more important than ever. No question about it. So you'll see as we go through this that there's a very simple set of norms that you should follow. They're crafted so that it really gives you clear guidance on the things that you need to do to be successful. This is about leading better from anywhere, right? So we want you to be the best version of you possible as a leader. You get to apply these at your level as you move up the organization. Obviously, the scope of what you're doing is bigger, but these norms apply no matter what level you're at. And so you need to master these as a leader. So org strategy. Tara, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. So just looking at org strategy, it's really that blueprint. You want to lay out the mission and the goals and help people get on board with why we're doing what we're doing. I love that Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. When you really understand why you're doing what you're doing, it helps you connect to the vision. And so that's really what org strategy is all about. You're laying out that blueprint. It answers some of those questions of where are we going? People need to know where we're going. They need to know how we win. They need to know what we will not do. Some of those things that are just not part of our org character. And it gives you those long-term and short-term tactics. So what is it that we're looking for in the near future? How is this going to help us win now? And then how are we going to win later? But you're really setting the strategy for the entire organization so that it's clear. Everybody understands where they belong. They understand what we're trying to accomplish, and everybody can then now get on board with that.
Yeah, and every leader has a role to play with strategy. Many organizations use OKRs. But regardless of the level you're at, you've got to make sure people understand this, no question. And then it gets to the design. You have a strategy. How does the design of your organization have to change to meet the requirements of what has to get done? And that means, and especially think about people working remote, we establish clear lines of authority and ownership so that decisions are made inclusively. That means that everybody who is impacted by a decision should have a voice in it. They have a stake. They're included in any decision making. And that's why the design, who owns what, has to be communicated very, very clearly. And this ensures that work gets done such that team members don't need to fight over turf, who owns what. And so that's important from a collaboration and relationship perspective. You got to make sure those lines of authority and ownership are clear. As a leader, you may own a big organization, you may own one piece, but you should understand the big organization, and you should ensure all of your people, regardless of where they're working, understand the organization and what the different areas of the organization do. That way they know who to reach out to, how to communicate. They're going to feel a lot less remote and isolated when they really know who owns what goes on. They can reach out to anybody and refer to the information that they've been given. So this is very important.
Yeah, I like to think of that as the who's on first of the organization. It's the worst thing in the world when you don't know who to reach out to, which kind of leads us into this org planning. You've got to know how to assess and allocate your resources properly. You got to make sure that you've got the right people in the right places, that people are clear on what their responsibilities are. You have clear agreements in terms of projects and tasks, responsibilities, authority, so that everybody on the team understands and they know what they're responsible for. They know what they're accountable for. You've got those racy charts going. Everybody kind of understands who's on first. They understand what they're responsible for and where the lines stop. So the last thing you want to have happening in your organization is to have multiple groups thinking that they're responsible for the same thing. And then you have this whole piece of work that nobody is working on because they are constantly pointing and thinking that somebody else is doing it. So this is a way to clarify things right up front, setting those goals and milestones so that everybody knows what the timelines are. We know what we're responsible for. We know how to get things done. And now it's just a matter of starting to execute.
Yeah, super important. I think people don't do a good job on this. And remember, you can use these norms. You could sit down with your team and say, this is why we're doing this. The planning process is going to result in this. So these norms are really good to share. They're good to live by. They're operational kind of constructs so that you can actually do things right. Demand management. Here's something that companies get wrong constantly. We're always building and putting a demand management process in place so that we can control the flow of new work coming in. Because regardless of how good the planning was, there's always new things that have to get done. So we collaborate across functions to thoughtfully integrate new demands into our existing workload so that expectations are realistic and team members are not overcommitted. As a leader, you got to look out for your people. You can't just keep dumping stuff on them. So you've got to work across the organization because it's that cross-functional collaboration that allows demand management to work, because you've got to get agreements as these demands come in, almost as an extension of the planning process, to ensure that these are thoughtfully integrated into the existing work that has to get done. And I see people always dropping the ball in this. Organizations are not good at this. And get agreement with all the peer organizations that you're going to work together to do this. Don't just try to force stuff through. Push back when you have to. Be a good leader, fight for your people, make sure they're just not overcommitted like a punching bag.
Yes, absolutely. And then this, I think, really helps with demand management because now everybody has their own individual accountabilities. Everybody has their piece of the pie that they're responsible for, their activities and tasks that they need to get done. They know what the timelines are. They know who's responsible for what. They know who to reach out to if they have questions, if they need to escalate. All of those things have already been defined. So now it's time to get into the work of it all. And having those individual accountabilities helps people to see that they are part of the team, an important part of the team. The work that they're doing matters because they understand how it connects to the vision and the goals that we're trying to accomplish. So now it's just a matter of doing it because now I'm bought into the vision. I've started to understand what I'm responsible for, and now I can get busy doing the work. And this is where we're just making sure that everybody, the manager, the employees, they all know what they need to accomplish. Everybody understands the short term, the long term, what we need to get done. And then, of course, fairness requires no ambiguity. We cannot stress that enough. You want to be fair across the board. You don't want people to feel like one set of rules is in place for one part of the organization, but then a whole different set is used for a different part of the organization. Everybody wants to feel like they're being treated fairly. And we have done some great videos on this. I was thinking about the Capuchin monkeys that we did that video several times. So if you're looking for more information on fairness, it's not necessarily what's spoken, it's in action. So please go take a look at that video. You'll get a good laugh, but it also teaches a really good lesson about fairness and equality.
Yeah, it does. And, I'll tell you, we assessed so many organizations over time. We went in, did the culture assessments, and it's surprising how often people don't understand their accountabilities when you ask the question. My accountabilities are clearly understood. I know what I'm going to be rated on. They don't know. And guess what? Comes time for them to get rated. They didn't really know what they were doing. Stuff comes up. It's in the review that they do good jobs on things. It was never clear anyway. It's completely unfair.
Right.
And that's why this is just so important, because fairness is a basic human need. It's one of the most basic. You got to get this right. Now, next week, we're going to move on to safe culture. Set of things that drive safe culture. You're remote workers. You're leading from anywhere. You got to ensure that you have a safe culture. So we're going to go through a set of norms that you really need to make sure operationalized in order to have a safe culture for your people. And this is super important. And we're going to go through this. This is a secret sauce. These norms are what you need to do to be a great leader. You do all of these, you're going to have a place that works great, where you can literally lead from anywhere. You can use this as a checklist and make sure you're getting all of these things right on an ongoing basis. So, share it with your team, get help where you need to get help, but make sure you operationalize all this stuff. So we're here every Wednesday, 3 o'clock with another show. This is a whole series. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. It's a great education. I hope you could join us and tune in. And these norms, you're going to find them very helpful. No question.
Yes. Bye for now.